Hello, hello, my sweet soul sisters. This is Alex Moffat, and I am coming to you live. Gosh, I didn't even have my mic here. Hope you can hear me a little bit better. So we are continuing our conversation on confidence. Welcome if this is your first time here at the ID Legacy and this is the first video that you've seen. We've been on a series of confidence and we are actually on week 5. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been exciting. Hello, hello. If you are hopping on, say hello. Make sure that you put your comments in. This is with StreamYard, and I'm not sure if you know how StreamYard works, so I'll just let you know. You've got to give them permission so that I can see you, and then that way I can truly interact with you as a person. So if you are here with me live, say hello. It's so nice to have you. And yeah, we are on week 5 with our confidence training. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a recap for those of you who are still coming on, hopping off. If you are watching this via replay, hashtag replay so that I can know that you saw it on the replay. A lot of people have been catching it, trying to figure out the exact time that would be best and beneficial for everyone to actually come on live. So yeah, if you have an opinion on that and there's a good time for you to see me, let me know. For now, I want to keep it on Thursdays, but it could be any time during the day on Thursday. So what is good and convenient for you guys? I might do a poll later on. But yeah, so we're going to go ahead and talk about our confidence. And I'm going to start off by reminding you and telling you that we are now on week 5 in the series of confidence. We've been doing this and it has been just a lot of fun and such a pleasure bringing this information to you guys. And if you've heard me once, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, I can bring the information. It is up to you to bring the activation. And then of course, God in his amazing goodness, he brings the transformation. But right, we do our part. So I'm going to give you some great information. The first 3 weeks that we talked about confidence, we really kept it all in the internal work because the Bible is very clear. Beloved, above all things, I pray that you would prosper and be in health even as your soul prospers. And so everything begins with our soul prosperity. That's our mind, our will, and our emotions. And so when we're talking about our confidence, yes, confidence is part of who we are in Christ. And yes, confidence is our inheritance, but we've got to work at it because the world has put so many things on us. We have been traumatized in so many ways, and so many different things in our lives have really shut us down. And so we don't always show up with the confidence that we could have and that we should have, and that's ours to have. And so we're going to do some work. And that's what we did the first 3 weeks. So I'm going to just get into a recap. Week 1, right? Week 1, we talked about what confidence was and confidence was not. Now, again, if you haven't seen these videos, you can feel free to go into the archives. They are going to be in the unit section for the next couple of weeks because this is a 6-week series. And of course, we're on week 5. So I've got one more week that I'm going to bring to you. And then we're closing this off. I'm going to leave it up for one more week so anyone could do what, you know, kind of get up to speed and everything that they need to. And again, it's on the unit section. Week 1, we talked about what confidence is and what it is not. We dispelled some myths about confidence. We took a confidence assessment to see where we stood with our very own confidence. And then we learned about the confidence mindset, what it really is and what it's going to take to become confident, to step out in that confidence. So that was week 1. Week 2, we talked about mindsets and limiting beliefs. Week 2 is all about our belief in our ability to change and grow as a person, and how we were going to cultivate that confidence and resilience, and how we change our perspective. So it's really important to realize that we can change our perspective and that we can show up in a different way as we learn what confidence is and what it isn't, right? And that we can actually take some steps to grow in confidence and banish those limiting beliefs. And so then week 3 was a very powerful week. Everybody told me that it was a very powerful week, that God really spoke to a lot of people in this time because it was about our self-doubt. And so it was the way that we looked at ourselves and the way that we showed up or didn't show up, as it were. So confidence had, or rather this self-doubt loop came in 4 different forms, and we learned that some of us are hesitating. So it was either hesitation or hiding, or we could have been hypercritical and helpless. And so this was a very powerful week because the assignment was, my eyes itching. The assignment was which one of these loops do you fall into? Hello, hello, whoever's watching, guys, make sure you put your name so that I can know who you are. And so, yeah, it was about who is, which one of these loops that you fell into. And then, of course, it was what God said about it. So which of the loops, and then you were to bring it to God, and he really spoke very powerfully to a lot of women, and they found that they were hesitating or they were hiding. Some of them were a little bit hypercritical. I had a couple who really fell into that helpless space. And so the information is there in the units if you want to go over that. It was a very, very powerful week. And then, yeah, that was the week before last. And then last week, we actually talked about taking action. And so last week was really important because we were now bringing this into the manifestation of confidence. Remember, the first 3 weeks, we were talking about mindsets. We were talking about our mind, our will, our emotions, and how it affects us in our souls, and how we need to take care of that first in our souls before we start trying to step out and manifest something that we're not feeling on the inside. Because guys, if we're not living congruently, if you're not believing it on the inside, no matter what you try to do on the outside, it's never going to line up. And so therein lies the issue. So if you need to go back, again, I want to remind you, they are in the archives. They are in the units. They'll only be there for a couple of weeks more. And then we are moving on to some other great stuff that God is really kind of putting on my heart to share with you guys, and really let you know what ID Legacy Sisterhood really is all about. Hello, Connie. Hello, how are you? So yeah, we are now in week 5, and this is a really exciting one for me. And I've got to tell you, the really interesting thing for week 5 for me is the fact that we are talking about interpersonal communication. Now, I personally feel that I have good communication skills. I think a little bit better than most, but when it comes to my immediate family and those that know me very well, I go crazy. So I communicate in a completely different type of level, and I really need to hone in on those skills with those that I love the most, but they understand me. So that's the beauty of being able to be your authentic self and be able to show up in such a, this is me. This is how I am. This is congruent. You're going to have to love me just the way God loves me. And he says, daughter, you are on a process. There is still some growing that you have to do, but he loves me all the way through it. I feel that my family does the same thing, and hopefully I'm doing the same thing for them, just loving them through. And so, yeah, when it comes to communication, that's what we're talking about today, interpersonal communication. So very important. Confidence. Let's see. Why is effective communication important for us? Well, when we're talking about confidence, when you speak to other people, you are either going to show up and be confident in the way that you speak, or you're going to hide and you're not going to share those things that you need to share. This usually happens in the personal realm, right? But if we're talking about business, and you are a businesswoman, or you are in a leadership position, then people are expecting you to show up with a level of confidence when you speak, especially when you're leading others. You got to get their buy-in. And the way they get their buy-in is that you have to speak very confidently. So this particular confidence that we're talking about, this particular communication that we're going to be talking about, is interpersonal communication. So this is that communication. It could be a one-on-one with somebody that you know. It could be friend, it could be coworker, but it's that one-on-one communication, or one to a group, but in a place where you're going to get some interaction, where you're going to get some feedback. So that's the difference. Next week, we're going to talk about that public speaking that everyone wants to hear about. Everybody wants to know, how do you show up and speak to an audience and have that charisma, have that confidence, show up and show off the way that you're supposed to. And we all want to have that. But if we can't do it in the smaller scale, right? What good is it, right? And again, this is why we started. And like I said, we are doing this. We are building this, because if you didn't have those building blocks on the inside of you, then there are no tips or tricks or tools or techniques that I could ever show you that's going to make a difference for you. But tonight, when we're talking about this confidence in expression, communication to be exact, and really honing it in there, interpersonal communication. When we are talking about this, I've got nothing but tips and techniques for you. So it is, buckle up, guys. I've got so much cool stuff to show you. Because really, basically, all this is about information and applying it so that you get some action. And when you do some action, you get some traction, right? So you get to go a little bit forward, a little bit more. So that's what we're talking about. So right now, I want to talk to you about why. Why is, let's see, are we there? Did we put that in there? I want to show this. Got that one? Yes. Here's the next one. Here's the next one. Why is effective communication important for confidence? This is the what's in it for me. Before I go into all this information, I want your buy-in. I want you to understand why it's so important for you to do this, guys, because this is how we are showing up. If we can't communicate on a one-to-one, again, we want stages. We want to be able to talk to people with confidence. But if I can't do it with this one person, I'm going to be hard pressed to be able to do it to a room full of people who are all looking at me like, bring it. Right? So I want you to make sure that you understand, and I want your buy-in on this. Why is this so important? Okay, so here are 5 reasons of why it is effective expression, communication, important for confidence. Guys, are you with me? Does that make sense? Kind of understanding? We are building something here, and I'm going to talk to you about why this is so important. And if any of these resonate with you, I want you to let me know. If you are hopping on, welcome, welcome, welcome. Do me a favor, put your name in there, say hello, hashtag live, right? If you're watching on the replay, hashtag replay. I know a lot of you ladies, my beautiful, lovely leaders, you're watching me on the replay, and that's perfectly fine. I want to interact with you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to make sure that this resonated with you. I want to give you some good, juicy meat, and I want you to keep coming back for more, because trust me, when it comes to confidence, being authentic, being authentically you, and walking out congruent to who you are as a person, there is nothing better when you're able to do that. And that's what I want you guys to know, that here at ID Legacy, it is all about getting you to feel that you can be completely yourself, right? Be comfortable in your own skin and have people still pay attention and listen and say, you know what? I think I like that better than when you were trying to be something that you weren't, right? I think I like you better when you are in that space where you are naturally who God created you to be, as opposed to anybody else, right? Something that we're trying to be that maybe we're not supposed to. All right, so number 1, why is this communication important for confidence? Number 1, it's going to help you to relate to other people on an interpersonal level, right? How we express information, that's what this interpersonal level is. How we express information to one another, how we express ideas, how we express our emotions. So this is really that talking one-on-one with another person. When you do this in a confident way, people are going to, their ears perk up. And they really kind of understand you a little bit better when you're able to express this in a way that they can, you know, you took the time to figure out how to speak to them. And this just kind of really works all together. Number 2, it's going to help you to be able to hear and understand them, because again, communication's 2 parts, and we're going to get all into that and everything else. But to be able to hear and understand that person that you're communicating with, and then also to be heard and understood yourself. Trust me, guys, misunderstandings, that hurts relationships, right? It's going to help. It's going to hurt your relationships. It'll hurt your goals. It'll hurt your teamwork. It'll hurt your teams at the office. It's completely ineffectual. So it's so important to really take the time to learn how to communicate, whether it is the listening part or whether it is the speaking part and getting your point across. We're going to talk all about that tonight. But yeah, so it's going to help you. This is why it's so important to do it in a confident way, because it's going to help you're speaking to and be heard and be understood yourself. Number 3, it helps you get what you want. Guys, isn't this what we all want? To be able to get what we want. Communicating with confidence helps other people what? Pay attention, right? They want to pay attention, and it helps you be even more persuasive. Okay, so in business, we all understand this. A confused mind says no. If you are not communicating very effectively, your customers are not going to be your customers for long, or your potential clients are going to have to say, yeah, you really didn't communicate that with enough information, or I just really didn't get it. It's not clear. And so this is going to kind of cut down on your opportunities, right? In relationships, we know that it's kind of important to be able to share your point of view and have input in your decisions. If you are in a relationship with someone and you don't ever, clearly say what you need or what you feel, then this is kind of a one-sided relationship. It's so important to be able to convey that. There's so many people who are silent in relationships, and they're just, okay, this is going to pass. Let them do what they want to do. Let him do what he wants to do. And all of a sudden, you know, time goes on and there's something wrong and you feel it because you're just never able to communicate your needs. And then honestly, your partner might be sitting there saying, you know what, I needed you to communicate that. I didn't know. It's not always my way, and that would have been okay, but I didn't know what you needed. So it's important to be able to communicate that. It helps garner real relationships, right? Okay, helps you become more assertive and empowered as you experience good outcomes. So let's get this straight. Let's talk about, again, confidence. Confidence comes from taking action, taking action. The more action you take, the more confident you become in that particular action. Same thing when it comes to communication. The better you communicate, the more you communicate, the better you get at it, right? The more that you're doing this, the better you get at communicating, the better outcomes that you're going to have. And of course, you are creating a new habit loop of effective communication. That's going to empower you. It's going to make you feel assertive. It is going to make you speak up more. So here's a question. Any one of you guys, anybody out there, you know, who's listening right now, have you ever felt that you just weren't able to say the things that you wanted to say, and so you kept your mouth quiet and then regretted it later on because you just didn't know how to say it? That's what we're learning here, so that doesn't happen to you. Because when you get this, please put in the comments. I'm waiting to see if anybody, if you understand, put fire, put, yeah, I get it, hearts, man, that's me. I've been there. I've felt that, right? But here's what happens. This is the ultimate about learning how to communicate correctly and effectively when it comes to relationships. It helps you gain satisfaction in those relationships, one with God, right? With self and others, because whether you want to say this or not, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to feel it or not, whether you want to verbalize it or not, if your relationships are lacking because of a lack of communication, you begin to feel, oftentimes, yeah, I hear you, you begin to feel resentful. When you're not able to share how you feel, or someone is not listening to you, you cannot communicate, you begin to feel very resentful. And whether you want to admit it or not, it will absolutely affect your relationship with God. And it affects your relationship with yourself. Now you start doubting yourself. You don't believe in yourself. You don't believe that you can speak and say things that you need to speak and say. You don't believe you don't believe that you are worthy of these things because you should have spoken up, right? And then, of course, it affects your relationship with other people. So guys, when you get this right, this is why it's so important. I wanted your buy-in because I've got some really cool tips and I've got some techniques that are really going to help you. However, you need to know you need to do the work here. It's going to help you gain satisfaction in your relationships with God, with yourself, and with other people. How cool is that? All right, so let's keep going. Let's keep going. See if that makes sense to you. If you guys are understanding this, this is the reason why we're doing it. And now we're going to talk really quickly about what an effective communicator actually is. I'm gonna hide that one because that's not there. What an effective communicator actually looks like, right? This person is confident. They speak with clarity. They have an open-mindedness about them. We're going to go into this detail later, but this is just the overview of what a confident person is looking like, or effective communicator. Confident, clarity, open-mindedness, and empathy. This is what's going to make you a really good communicator. Don't lose heart. If any one of those things you feel like, I don't have that yet, I don't have that yet, trust, understand, but I want you to know, I want you to remember that these are skills that must be honed and repeated if we're going to create that habit of being an effectual communicator. So there's hope, guys. There is hope. All right. So now we're going to get into the 5 basic principles of effective communication. All right. All right. So here are 5, these are basic things. When you are this great communicator, these are the things that you're just showing up with. This is basic. And then we're going to break it down for you. Number 1, when you're effectively communicating, you have a clear message. Ladies, you have a clear message. You're not just speaking for sake of speaking. Speaking and communicating are 2 different things. We can speak about anything, right? We can just say whatever we want to say. But true communication, you have a specific message. You have something to say. That's a basic principle. Number 2, Engagement with others, right? Remember, this is a type of conversation that's interpersonal. So you're going to look for feedback from other people. You're just not talking and talking and talking and not getting that feedback. Now, sometimes depending on the situation that you are in, for instance, this public speaking, sometimes it's a little harder to get that feedback. That's why we're saying, throw me a hashtag, throw me a heart, throw me a fire. Let me see and make sure that you're still engaging, that you're understanding this, and that you're still with me, right? Because again, communication is all about making sure I get my succinct message across. So engaging with others is very important. When you are in front of somebody, make sure that they're engaging back with you, that they're with you. You're going to see it. They're going to be nodding their head, right? Yeah. They're going to look at you like, what? You're going to have some kind of engagement with them. Make sure also that you stay curious. It's important. Remember, communication is a two-way street. So what the other person has to say is just as important as what you have to say. So you want to stay curious. Okay. Number 4, practice active listening. We're going to talk about more later about active listening in a minute. We got a whole section on that because that is such a huge, huge component of true communication, that active listening. All right. And then we're going to be mindful of our body language. Okay. If you don't know this, your body language is actually 93% of your communication. So let's take even this as an example. There are some people who are absolutely watching it. And so they're seeing my expression, they're seeing my hands, they're seeing my facial gestures. They see all of this and they communicate, and I'm communicating that I'm excited about what I'm talking about. And I hope I'm coming across confident. And so they're looking at it in a certain way. However, there are a lot of people who are not going to be watching this. They might be doing something else, but they are listening to it. And so inflection, intonation, that's also going to come into play, right? But body language and the way that you speak are very important. That's 93% of the communication. So what you say verbally, your written, or I'm sorry, your spoken word, 3% or 7%. 93% is that body language. Okay. Does that make sense? Are you guys with me? All right, let me know. Let me know. All right. We are now going to go into 3 important parts of the effectual interpersonal communication, right? The 3 components. These are the parts that we're going to talk about: the verbal, nonverbal, and the active listening. Those are the 3 parts that are really, really important right now. We're going to break those down for you. Verbal, as we know, it's oral. Anything including, your tone of voice, your spoken words, your speech, your chattering, whether you are chatting with somebody, whether it's a speech, whether you are, however it is that you are speaking, that is the verbal. But it's also including the written, because it's the words. So written, text, letters, email, written word, that's also part of your verbal communication. The nonverbal part, right, is the body language. We already spoke about that. It could be your visual cues. It could be your facial expression, your hand gestures, and even behavioral, like your general behavioral. Like we've all been there. We go somewhere and all of a sudden there's that person that they're not speaking with their arms flailing or anything. You're not hearing anything that they have to say, but you're like, he looks a little suspect. Like there's something about the way that he's behaving that's just off. And you know it. So even our behavior really speaks volumes. I'll tell you, for me, like my nonverbal, how there are people that we wear our hearts on our sleeves. That's what they say about us, right? Everybody knows that when Alex is feeling a certain kind of way, I could be off and I just don't even understand what it is, but I turn very introspective. I'm an extrovert. But when I am thinking something, when I'm very pensive, when I really, really have a thought there that I am focused on, I kind of shut down and everybody feels it. And so that's just the behavioral. They're like, oh, there's something there. And we might not know, they might not know, I might not know what it is, but there's something there. Crossed arms. Yeah. So yeah, there's something there and people can see it. And so yes, your body language is very important with that nonverbal communication. Active listening is the 3rd part. Being fully present, that is active listening. Being aware, being open-minded, being curious, and empathetic. Those are all parts of that active listening. Okay? So we're going to break that down a little bit further, and we're going to talk about the verbal part. So it's delivering what we have to say with confidence, right? That verbal part is these are some tips for verbally speaking, right? That part that we talked about, the verbal, the oral. Okay. Number one, so I've got just a list of really cool tips and you're going to understand them. And if you put these things into practice, then you're going to become a more effective communicator. People are really, really going to be able to understand you. They're going to flock to you. They're going to enjoy being around your presence. Everybody loves a really great communicator. People kind of honestly think that this person has charisma, you know, that they have something. You just lean into that person who's a great communicator, whether it's what they're saying, even what they're not saying, right? The nonverbal cues, and especially if they're really good active listeners. Like I have a couple of people, I'm going to give you some examples of really good active listeners. But okay, here we go. Tip number one for your verbal, delivering what we have to say with confidence. Remember, the backbone of everything that we're talking about is how to do it with confidence. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to and how not to. Number one, speak with a clear, stable, and slow speech and tone. Okay, when you really need to communicate something, you might want to slow it down. But some of us, we're really fast talkers anyway. Hopefully you understand everything that I say. But the bottom line is when you have something very important that you need to communicate, again, this is different than just talking. This is communication. You want to slow down your speech. You want to speak very clearly with a stable voice, right? This eliminates the need for other people to strain, and it assures that you are going to be heard by your audience, okay? By the way, your tone sets the stage for the conversation. You know, like that tone is such an important thing. If I came at you like this and it was all sweet, you know, we're going to have a good time. But if I came at you with a little rush, you know, the tone a little bit, maybe a little faster speech and a little bit more harshness, that tone sets the stage for everything. So tone is very important as well. Number two, be concise and choose your words carefully. Make your point, guys, and stay on point. I'm one of those that has an absolute habit of going off on a tangent. So I'm speaking to myself here, right? No going off on tangents. Use strong declarative sentences. This is very important. Avoid words like perhaps or could or maybe. Well, perhaps you can do that, or maybe it could be like that. You want to avoid that wishy-washy talk. When you have something very important to communicate, again, we are talking about hard communications here, not just, hey, what are you doing for dinner? You know, let's go to the movies. This is serious communication. So when you need to do that, when you need to communicate that, you want to make sure that you're not using wishy-washy, that there is under no uncertain terms, this is what I mean to say. Avoid double talk. Say one thing and then no, but it's too much confusion, right? Okay, number three, be sure to know your audience. This is so important, guys. Use words that they would deem appropriate or that they would deem comfortable, right? You're going to avoid jargon. You don't want to assume that anyone knows exactly what you're saying, right? Especially in a business setting. I know people who work at hospitals, and when they have that doctor mentality or they have that nurse mentality or whatever, they're speaking to you in that jargon. Can you like bring that down? Oh yeah, it was just high blood pressure, but they're like hypertension. I don't know. Okay, I don't understand. So we want to make sure that when we're speaking to somebody, we know our audience and we speak on their level, right? I'm not going to speak the same way to my 15-year-old that I would to my 45-year-old brother. Okay, so yeah, know your audience, know what is comfortable for them. Avoid that jargon when you're talking to clients or customers, or make sure you're on their level, that you're speaking their language. All right, don't dumb it down. People feel very offended. It could be very just offensive, insulting if you dumb down a conversation with someone who actually can speak that intellectual way. Okay, so. Anyway, let's see. Number 4 is speak from the heart. This one is so important. When we're communicating with someone, we want to speak from the heart, right? Now, there's so many different ways that I can go with this, but I'm going to name a couple of things of what I mean when I say speak from the heart. Number 1, try to connect with your emotions. If this is a heated situation, you really want to try to connect with your emotions and explain how you are feeling, right? When it's appropriate. But you always want to speak with sincere inner convictions. you always want to be congruent and aligned with who you are as a person when you speak, right? People relate to passion and they understand certitude. They understand that when you are certain, right? When you speak with this conviction and this passion, people are like, yeah, man, she really means it. She gets it, right? So it's okay to speak very passionate. It's okay to speak from the heart. It's okay to feel very connected and aligned. It's very appropriate. And I will tell you, besides all that, people are going to know when you're trying to fake the funk. People are going to know when you are trying to manipulate a situation, right? You're trying to say something, but they kind of know you don't mean it, right? So make sure that you deliver what you need to say from the heart. Here's other ways that you can express yourself from the heart. You can express gratitude when it's appropriate, right? Depending on what we're talking about here. We always want to lead with that. Apologize when you're in the wrong. Give compliments if it's, again, appropriate, right? Everything is appropriate. I like this one. Use humor to soften blows. Again, knowing your audience. These are different ways that you can express yourself, that you can speak from the heart and stay congruent with who you are as a person. To me, that's one of the most important things. I know everything, for me, it always comes down to being able to be comfortable in my skin, be my authentic self. What you see is what you get. I promise you, I'm not saying one thing and feeling another, because you're going to know it. You're going to see it. It's just, it is what it is. And so, yeah, you want to make sure that you stay congruent with who you are as a person. Okay, now I'm going to give you, those are the tips, and I hope they were good. Do they make sense? You guys, you're still with me? You're still with me on the tips? Because now I've got 2 really cool techniques when it comes to communication. And some of you probably have heard this before, but they are worth repeating. Really, they are. Here's the first one. Use I statements, right? You want to use those I statements. Verbal tips, we did that. Here's the first technique. Use that I statement. I have all these little things here. I want to use them, right? Okay. And what has this go? Okay, so instead of saying, you ignore me when I talk, say, sometimes when I'm talking, I kind of feel like you're not listening. So you kind of want to put that back on you. Because otherwise, when you say you, the person feels automatically, people are going to go into the defensive. Automatically, they're going to feel like you're attacking them. And so the beauty of these I statements is that you get, and you've heard me say this before, we get to take responsibility. The honest truth is no one can make you feel anything, right? No one can make you feel anything. You are feeling some kind of way because of some experience that you've had, or something that you've been through, either with this person or with something else, but no one can make you. You decide. And so to be able to say, I feel this way, is to take complete responsibility for who you are as a person. That is great. That's a great locus of control, saying on the inside, I do have, I can control a little bit. I can take responsibility for who I am. And that's a beautiful thing, because it also disarms the person that you're speaking with, right? So instead of saying, you don't care that I work just as hard as you do, right? When he comes home and everybody's coming home and he wants to sit down and you got to cook, right? Or you could say something like, well, after a long day of work, I would really appreciate your help after, when I make dinner. So this is about me. I would really appreciate, not you don't, I. So those are those I statements. I would love it if you could think of a good I statement that you've used in the past, or if you've ever heard of this I statement, let me know. Does it make sense? Can you see yourself situation with someone that you're usually going back and forth with, the you do this, no, you do this, no, you do this? Being able to use that I statement to diffuse the situation, to pull the guard down with the person that you're speaking to, then to be able to get in there and actually communicate, and they'll realize that this is just how you are feeling. So there's that. Okay, here is another verbal technique. This is number 2. And this one's called turning a critique into a question. And I have to tell you that in my house, I have like the master of this. My husband is the master of this. I'm going to show you what the technique looks like. And I love it because it's such a gentle way to correct, right? And we want to be gentle. We want to be loving in the things that we do. Sometimes it's, you need a good, hard, strong word, no doubt. But sometimes it could be done in such a gentle way that if we can take that route, it actually works better into our benefit. So here's what it is. You're going to point out what's working and then turn the technique into a question, right? Turn the critique, into a question. That's the technique. You're going to point out what's working and then you're going to turn the critique into a question. So you're going to have an affirming statement and then you're going to address the negative issue as if it was a problem to be brainstormed together, right? Example, I really appreciate how much you wanted to surprise me for dinner. But is there a way that I could get heads up so that I could be ready the next time? That person that just shows up at your door, hey, I'm taking you to dinner, and they never even called you, right? So instead of saying, you're so rude, or like, how do you I'm really thinking of my sister because I'll like stop over at her house or she'll stop over my house. And we really are very considerate of each other. But there's that time when you just do something out of the blue or whatever and you don't think. And so how would it be if you can say that statement in such a nicer way? I appreciate the surprise. I appreciate you wanting to spend time with me. But do you think that, can we figure out a way that you can call me first so that I could be ready for you when you get here? Right? Something like that. Okay. Or I really appreciate the effort that you put into your presentation. How can we incorporate some fact checking into it for the next time? Because, that person had a lot of fluff, but not enough facts, right? But you don't want to say that. We're not going to talk to them that way. But you flip it. You give them a compliment, and then you flip the issue in a way that says, how do we work at this together? And it kind of softens that blow. Okay, so those are two good techniques when we're talking about the verbal part of communication, right? Now we're going to move on to the nonverbal, and I'm calling this possessing confident body language. Possessing confident body language. All right. So when we're talking about these nonverbals, I'm going to go ahead and give you again some tips with that nonverbal. Some of the things that you should do, some of the things that you shouldn't do, and then we'll take a look. Okay. So number one on the nonverbal things that you need to do to make sure that you are effectively communicating with your nonverbal communication is put away the distraction, guys. Concentrate on the person, clear the room if you need to, turn off the TV, get rid of the phone, right? Put that thing on the side. We're not doing the Facebook time while we're having a heart-to-heart, right? So we want to make sure that we're putting away all the distractions. That's number one. Number two, we want to make eye contact. Again, remember, this is all for confident communication. So when we're talking about eye contact, no staring into outer space or on the floor, right? We're going to meet that person in the eyes. We're going to meet them in the eyes as you make your point, right? As I make my point, I'm going to be looking at you in your eyes. As you make your point, I'm going to be looking at you in your eyes so that you understand, one, I'm speaking confidently. I don't have to look anywhere else. I'm going to look at you and I'm going to speak very directly to you. That is poise and confidence when you speak to someone. It doesn't have to be confrontational. I actually know a lot of people that grew up, they can't even converse looking at you in the eye. They look to the side when they're talking to you. And, there's something inherently wrong with that, because when you're talking to someone, it communicates respect. It communicates presence. I'm here. I'm right here. I'm in the moment. This is the most important thing to me. And how important is that when you are having those hard conversations? So the most that it's within your power to do, you make sure that you have that great eye contact with that person that you're talking to. Okay. And again, like I said, it's a sign of respect. It maintains attention. If you were trying to say something to you, some of these things are really cool. It's really awesome. But sometimes it's easier said than done. I have to say this because there are times that my husband's talking to me and he will pause. I love this. This is such a powerful stance. He will pause and he'll wait, right? If my attention went somewhere else, a squirrel, and I'm thinking of something else or I'm doing something else, like he will literally pause. And when the room is silent, then I have to look back up at him and are we here? Are we there now? I'm like, yeah, okay. And he'll start talking again. It's powerful. It's respectful. It commands respect. It commands attention. I love when he does that, but he deserved it to begin with. And so it was me who strayed, right? So in as much as with that's within our power, we want to make sure that we honor one another with full eye contact when we speak to people. Okay. All right. And again, there's that presence, there's respect, there's attention, and there's certainly confidence when you're speaking to someone and you're looking at them straight in the eye. All right. Number 3, you want to maintain good posture. Standing straight or sitting up straight, right? You want to relax your shoulders. You want to make sure that your shoulders are relaxed because it's important. We're not trying to be rigid here, but we want to relax our shoulders. And this promotes positivity. It promotes confidence. It also conveys interest. Right? You don't want to be talking to somebody and they're doing like this. You want to make sure that you are, and of course, if you are the one who's delivering the information and you are the speaker, then you want to make sure that you are coming from a place of, your stance is saying everything. If you are very confident, then you're going to be standing up straight. You're going to be sitting up straight. Your back is, your shoulders are going to be back and you're going to be able to deliver that. So that's an important part of it as well, making sure that your body language is showing that and it conveys interest in the other person. You want to make sure that you ease your jaw. Sometimes we're in a really hard conversation and our jaws kind of clench and you're talking like, honestly, aggression is not confidence, guys. So when you're in that place and you're upset or whatever, or you have to get a point across, you don't have to be aggressive. That does not equal confidence. Confidence is very more laid back, right? Ease your jaw. Better yet, put a smile on your face. A confident smile is going to help you feel more relaxed, and it's going to put your listener at ease. So regardless of what it is that you're going to say to them, when you can have that conversation with them and say, hey, let's work at this together with a smile on your face, it has a different connotation and they're going to receive it in a different way. They're going to be a little bit less guarded, which is very important in communication. And again, you want to keep your breathing consistent. If in case you're in that place where you're having that hard conversation, you want to just kind of breathe nice and easy, right? This is the outward look of what, the body language of what true confidence looks like. If you're breathing and, hard and everything else, that's not real confidence. Something is, so there's a way to just kind of bring it down, breathe correctly, smile, be poised, say what you have to say with the strength that you need to say it. But these are the ways that you're going to convey that confidence. Avoid nervous movements or adjustments. A lot of people, when they're having hard conversations, they're messing with their clothes. You can't see me, but I'm messing with my shirt down here. They might be messing with their hair. None of that conveys confidence. It's distracting, and it actually conveys a lack of interest, right? If you're talking to me and I'm doing shows a lack of interest and a lack of confidence when you're the one doing the talking. So we want to be careful with that as well. Avoid those nervous movements. All right. Number 6, remember your body language can either confirm or contradict your vocal communication. Very interestingly enough. Okay. We know this. We've seen people do this all the time. How are you feeling today? Or, you say to them, did you like what you saw? Oh, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Yet their head is shaking no. Did I do a good job? Oh my gosh, you were amazing, right? Their body language is saying something different than what their words are saying. So remember, your body language can either confirm or contradict what you verbally said. All right. So I'm going to tell you just a couple of, these nonverbal ways. There's 7 of them. Common non what they mean. Some of them, you might know. Throw down if you want. You go ahead and leave on the comment if there's others that that I didn't mention and you kind of know what they mean. For example, that crossed arm, that folded arm like this. What does this mean to you? Put a comment. Anybody who's watching, go ahead and put your comment in. What does this mean to you? So when you have your arms folded like this, people are going to say that it is a defensive posture, right? And it can also mean insecurity. You're kind of guarding yourself, so you're a little bit insecure, right? Also, when you kind of fold your arms, you're trying to make yourself look a little bit bigger. It most definitely can stem from insecurity, right? Hands clasped behind the body. It's hard for me to say, clasped behind the body. That's when you put your hands back here and you're talking like this. This says authority, and it actually says confidence. You've seen people, right? They'll stand like that and their legs will be a little bit apart, and they're standing with their feet are like a shoulder width apart, and you can see they're conveying that confidence. A lot of soldiers stand like that, at attention or at ease. I'm not sure which one it is, but you'll see them with their hands in the back and their body is out like that. It is a very confident and authoritative stance. Uninterested. Which one? The arms crossed? Which one is uninterested? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Finger pointing. Oh gosh, this one. This shows, this makes me laugh because I just had this conversation this morning. I was talking with my husband, and I don't even remember what the conversation was, but I had my pen in my hand and I was doing like this. He's like, put that pen away. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Finger pointing is aggression. And I had no intention of being aggressive. I am very passionate, but I wasn't intending to be aggressive. And my husband's like, put the finger away. So it's aggressive. Okay, let's keep going. Clenched fists, when you're doing like this. Anger. This is anger. It's resolve, or it's anxiety. Depending on what they're doing and how they're doing it, it could say anxiety, it could say resolve, or it could say anger. So have you ever seen somebody walk around with their clenched fist? You're having a conversation with them and they're clenching their fists. Okay. Clasping or squeezing hands. We know these, right? We know these people, all of this. We know this. This is a self-soothing mechanism. So that person could be anxious. They could be a little worried, arms crossed. Okay. Yes, that's uninterested in a person. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this one though is it's a self-soothing mechanism. They could be very well anxious, or just kind of worried or scared that what they have to say is going to come across wrong. Okay, hands on the hips. We all know this one, right? This is authority, or assertiveness. We've all seen people with the hands on the hips. So those are just 7 common ones that when you are having that communication, depending on what you want to convey, and then also understanding that sometimes you do these things very subconsciously, so you don't even know, but this is how you're coming across. Again, that finger pointing that I was doing, it wasn't meant to do that, but yeah, I was getting very impassioned. And so he's like, okay. That was, that's exactly what it could have been misconstrued, but it's aggression. So there's that. All right. So those are the nonverbal. Hang on, guys, because we are at the last one. We're at the end here, the finishing stretch here. So now we want to talk about that active listening, that being confident in how we listen. And I have to say, for me, I love to communicate. I love to talk. I love to share things. This active listening is something that I really, really want to dig a little deeper in. It's so important to do better at this. And again, I think the people who kind of get the worst of me are those that are the closest to me, those that you feel so comfortable with. It's so much easier for me to do that active listening with people who I don't know very well. I get to hear their whole story. I really am very interested in what they have to say because I'm getting to know them in a new way, right? And so for me, it is something that that I'm striving to get better at for my own family, for my immediate family, because I kind of always think, I know what they're going to say. And I don't, sit there and really actively listen all the time. I'm getting better. I'm trying, guys. I really am. All right. So here it is. Number 1 for this active listening, right? These are some tips again. Stay present, guys. Active listening is all about staying present. Full and undivided attention. Remember, we're putting the phones away. We are not thinking of anything else. We're most definitely not thinking what we're going to say next. That's another one. But give the speaker your full attention, your full undivided attention. Number 2, you want to be a careful and considerate listener. This is the no distractions, the no half-hearted listening, the no thinking about what you're going to say next. Guilty? I've been guilty of that one for sure. It's all about what they have to say. Right? No interrupting. Don't interrupt to give your opinion, to give your critique. This is my nervous smile because I've done these things. Like I've done these things to give your opinion, to give your critique or your advice. And sometimes, because I'm someone that people usually come to when they, they have an issue and they want to talk, and sometimes they want to talk it out. Sometimes they do want my advice. Sometimes they don't. So oftentimes I need to ask from the get-go, okay, are we venting here? Are you just you just want a listening ear and you're going to figure this out yourself? That's awesome. That's what coaching really is too, because you have all the answers yourself. I'm just here to help you, guide you just a little bit, to get you to that place and give you something to consider if you haven't thought of it. But this is very active listening, letting someone say everything that they need to say, right? Active listening is for the sole purpose of understanding the speaker, really listening to everything that the speaker has to say. And sometimes it's a little hard because you might speak differently. There are some people who speak a lot slower than others, right? My speech is usually more hurried. I usually have a more hurried speech. It's passionate, it's active. You can see it like this. And then there are people who are very soft spoken. And for me to pull it completely down, to give them the permission that they need and the space that they need to fully be themselves and stay engaged, but that's the work that we do. When we love people, we have to meet them where they're at. We have to love them, and show them that love in the way they need to receive it, because it's not about me, it's about that person. So being able to just not interrupt and let them speak for however long they need to, because again, active listening is for the sole purpose of understanding the speaker. So it's not about you, it's about the speaker. Okay, no attacks or threats. Make sure that when you are active listening, right, there's no attacks, there's no threats, you're not gonna say anything to them. True confidence isn't aggressive, guys. And listening is about allowing the other person to have a different point of view sometimes and be okay with that. And that's really important. When you're actively listening, it might actually be something you don't want to hear. But an active listener is going to stay quiet and they're just going to listen. They're going to hear it, right? They're going to hear everything the other person has to say. This is another huge one for me. No problem solving. It's not time for problem solving yet. Let them speak, right? Let them say everything that they need to say, and then we can look for that win-win situation. Remember, communication is both perspectives. They're both valid. Both perspectives are valid, and how we interact together is the most important part of it, how we can come into an agreement together. These are the active listening tips. I forgot my banner there. Anyway, so yeah, that is what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're listening very clearly, and just allowing them to do what they have to do, say what they have to say. Right? It's about coming to that agreement. Okay, then come, let us reason together after they've spoken their part of it. Okay, so lastly, I've got an active listening technique. I'm sure that you've heard this before, but it bears repeating, because this is how this active listening truly, truly works. 3 steps to it. Step number 1, stop talking. So now you've said everything that you had to say, especially if you're the one who called the meeting, right? You've said everything that you have to say. Now you stop talking. Invite the other person to begin to speak. Let them have the floor. Very important. Just let them have the floor. Number 2, and again, while we're doing this active listening, we're going to do all those other parts, but this is just the breakdown of the technique to it. Number 2 is mirror. You're going to paraphrase what you hear. So you're going to say something like, so what you're saying is, and repeat what you heard back to them. We're not parroting, we're paraphrasing. So if you repeat it verbatim, they're going to be like, you're not really listening, right? But you're going to know that you understood what they said. And then you're going to ask them, is that correct? So what I hear you saying is that you really don't want my shoes on the floor in the middle of the night so that you stumble on them, right? You really prefer that I put them away, right? Yes, Alex, that's what I mean. Okay, is that correct? Yes, great. All right. And so then here's the last question that you asked. So it's the 3 questions. So what I hear you saying, say what you think that you heard them say. Next question is that correct? Yes, they'll affirm. Absolutely. That's what I meant, or no. And then you got to try again. And then number 3 is there more? That's the last question you're going to ask them. Is there more? This is so important to ask, and I'm going to tell you why. Because sometimes a person needs for you to for them to completely know that you've heard everything that they said. So when you mirrored back to them and you paraphrased what they said, what they hear is that you're now actively listening. And when that happens and you say, is there more? They get to dig a little deeper. And now they're saying, okay, now it's worth me opening my mouth and saying what I really feel, because she's asking, is there more? And I'm here understanding me. And so if we're back to the shoes on the floor, then maybe, my husband will say, yeah, Alex, I really feel like you don't take the fact that I go into the bathroom, with the lights off in consideration. When you put your shoes there, you don't really care about my well-being. All right, then I got to own that one. I apologize. That wasn't what I meant to do. But you get to the heart of it. You get to the nitty gritty, to the core of what the issue is. If you take the time to ask that one last question, is there more? And then they get to say, of course, yes or no. Okay, last one. Last thing that you do is that you validate. When you ask them, is this what you said? Is this correct? Is that correct? Is there more? And you've gotten all out there, then you're going to validate. And what you're going to do is that you're going to express to them that you understand how they feel and that it makes sense to you. Right? You don't have to agree with them. The goal is not to agree. The goal is to empathize. So you want to say something regardless of the situation, right? So you want to say something like, I see where you're coming from. I can see how you feel that way. I would probably feel that way too. Just empathize with them and help them feel validated, because it's from their point of view. And their point of view is just as valid as yours is. And so that's what we want to do. We want to lead with that empathy. We want to truly actively listen. When we do that, guys, people are going to flock to us. People are going to flock to you. They're going to say, man, that one listens, because people care about what they care about. And when you say, I care about you, it's so important to them. Honestly, there's a phrase that I heard many, many years ago, and I love it. People don't care for what you know until they know that you care. So when you lead with that empathetic ear, when you lead with empathy and you're saying, I really care about what you're saying, then people are more apt to hear you when you speak, because they're going to know this person cares about me. This person has my best interest at heart. This is why that active listening technique is so important. I hope that this made sense to you guys. I really do. And I hope that, again, I gave you some techniques. I gave you some tips. If you put these things into practice, guys, watch out, because you're going to be a very confident, very effective listener on a completely different level. This is going to change your relationships. Guys, this is going to change your relationship, again, with God, with yourself, and with others. You're going to have more confidence in yourself. You're going to have more confidence in other people and how you interact with them. And this actually even trickles down to your confidence with God. So, hey, Crystal, no worries. Catch the replay. So yeah, very important. That is it. Here is the homework for today. There's always homework. I want you guys to be doers, not just hearers of the word, doers of the word. This is where that activation takes place. This is where true transformation happens. So here we go. This is your homework. See that down there? I want you to have a hard conversation. I know this is a lot to ask. I want you to go back and list everything in this that you heard in this video, those things that can really resonate with you, those things that you can really put into practice. And I want you to have a hard conversation. Okay? I want you to ask God, who do you want me to talk to? It could be your spouse. It could be your child. You've been avoiding having this conversation with your child, with your spouse, with your best friend that you haven't spoken to, and this big pink elephant has been sitting in the room for a while because you just haven't had that moment where you can actually talk and connect because you're afraid to have this conversation. Hopefully these tools and these tips are going to help you do that and be able to have that conversation. Okay. But I want you to go ahead and ask the Lord and then apply some of these techniques. Tell me how they work, and then share or post your victory here at the ID Legacy Sisterhood group. All right, that is a homework for this week. I would love to hear your big win. When you had that hard conversation, if it yielded a huge win, and I bet it will. I mean, it will. When your heart is open, there's a verse in the Bible that says, God, prepare my heart, right? If I prepare my heart, you will give me the words to say. God is all about repairing relationships, fixing them. He's about doing those hard things, including being a great communicator. He wants you to do that. He wants you to get in there and have that hard conversation with someone. And I want to hear about your win this week coming up. All right. Next week, guys, just so you know, confidence with public speaking. This is going to be that communication part two, right? Next week, we're going to talk about that confidence in public speaking. We're going to try to get over that fear. I'm going to give you some tips that you need, some really good techniques to get out there and show up and show off with confidence with whatever that word is that you have to say. God put a word in your mouth. Woman, speak. And we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to get into that next week's challenge. Prepare yourself, because I want to see some videos, guys. I want to see you come out and give that word, whatever it is that God wants you to say. I want to see you on video actually finally showing up. After we do the tips, the techniques, and all the tricks and everything else, next week, guys, it's going to be really awesome. Again, we're talking about that confidence in public speaking. I am Alex Moffett. As always, guys, I am rooting for your rise. Love you. Have a great night. Bye.